Welcome into Pioneer Baseball with Tusculum coach Brandon Steele. I'm Brian Staten. As the Pioneers, 32 games in, talking with Coach Steele for the first time. After a rough Florida swing, the Pioneers go through a 12-game winning streak, get back on the winning ways, and now find themselves in a tie for third in the South Atlantic Conference. Got Dewberry, got Catawba, a bunch of teams with just 3 losses on the year. It's another 20-win campaign. The Pioneers are looking for more as Coker looms coming up this weekend. Joined by Pioneer coach Brandon Steele. We talked a little bit about I just mentioned that Florida swing to start out. I think it's always a great way to get your guys probably acclimated to, number one, great pitching and some great hitting down in the Sunshine State Conference. It's always a tough road swing, though. You get the first win of the year, your first win as first-year head coach, and then all of a sudden we go through this little 7-game losing skid.
Right.
Were you about ready to pull your hair out during that time, and what were some of the things that you weren't doing during that stretch?
Well, I think as a new program and with some changes in the identity of who we are and the way we're doing things, winning the first game, I think kind of hurt us a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the guys thought it was going to be pretty easy from here on out, and we as a staff felt pretty good about the way we played that day. Offensively, we executed our plan that we'd preached all fall, and then the rest of the 7 games kind of hit us. And there were some challenges. Obviously, myself doing this the first year, having Coach Jones was a huge asset. It was actually after the Young Harris game. I asked to meet with him and just to kind of talk from a mentor standpoint about some of the things I was going through personally as far as making sure we were doing things the right way and committing to our plan and our philosophy and showing every day consistency from us as a staff, because that's what we demand of our players. And that's really been what we've seen in the last few weeks, and the results have improved accordingly.
Yeah, a 12-game winning streak followed that. So that really kind of puts you on those winning ways. Obviously, meeting with your predecessor and the guy that was here at Tusculum has a lot to do with that, but you guys had to have played a little bit better as well. Weather didn't really play a nice factor, because I've always said when the weather warms up, the Pioneers warm up as well. That didn't happen during that 12-game winning streak, so there was something obviously that came together. What clicked for you?
Well, obviously we're a first-year staff. Coach Allen and I have been together for a long, long time, but obviously our roles have changed a little bit, and then with Coach Miller, Toplesky, and Pewitt, and then our team, again, it's a little bit different as far as how we're doing things, and I think they were searching to really cling to the identity that we're trying to establish for them. And once they found some confidence in that, I think that was really what got us over the hump, is just the way we're doing things every day, which in the culture of the player that we're using, that we're coaching now, it's a little bit different. And we're trying to focus on some of the more controllable and manageable things that we have a better influence on the outcome. You alluded to earlier, talking about stats and scoreboard watching and some of those things, and that's something I don't do. I don't know what our guys are hitting. I know what our quality bat percentages are. I know what our strikeouts are, and that's really what I focus on. And as a program, we're spending more time focusing on us and talking about what we have to do in our plan, executing our plan, and less time on the opponent. So we have a smaller focus as far as what we're trying to do each day.
All right, it's a Pioneer team that, like I said, right now in the mix in the South Atlantic Conference, at least 5 teams in that top 5. 5 teams with winning records in the South Atlantic Conference, a T3. But was it beneficial to kind of have that first weekend off to kind of still continue to build on some of the momentum that you had? I know it's always going to be tough to just jump right into conference play, but if you had jumped in with Wingate right there at the beginning of the season, just 2 weeks into the year, I don't know how difficult that would have been to get that mindset that you needed. Was it a benefit to kind of have that first weekend open in the conference play?
No question for us, particularly after getting back from Florida. Going into that trip, we had our basically pitching staff established as far as our rotation, and then after the first appearance for Chase McAllister this year against Nova, he hasn't pitched since. So that left us making some adjustments, and I think that left some questions on uncertainty in the pitching staff as far as who was going to establish those roles and really own those roles moving forward. And as we'd gone week to week with some consistency, with our lineup and also our pitching rotation, I think guys started feeling a little bit more comfortable and believing, yeah, we have the ability to do this. Let's just focus on executing and seeing if we can win the game.
I believe some guys, especially on that pitching staff, have picked up their roles and what they understand. Open up with Wingate, get 2 of 3 there, and then Charles Hall kind of really starts to emerge. Now, he's been striking people out left and right all season long, but then he had the game. How special was that to sit there and watch as a skipper and see what he was doing and how he was executing on the mound? Because I don't know that I have ever witnessed anything like that.
I personally haven't either, and we've known that he's had the ability since he got on campus. And last year, you can look as far as how his role changed, coming from the bullpen into a starter, and really growing as a pitcher. And I think this summer was really big for him, having some success in the Coastal Plains League, although it being in a closer role, and then coming back to us as a starter. And just his competitiveness is something that he's always had the ability to put him over the top, but now it's his execution that's really combined with those two things. And, you know, at Tusculum, if you can break a Craig Goodman or Placido Torres record, you've done something pretty good. And then to take it to the next level and actually set a new national record was something that's really, really special. And I'm sure all those guys that were on the field, that's something we'll never forget, to be a part of that.
Could you imagine what was going through Jack McDowell's head? You know, I mean, a guy that's a pitcher himself, what was going through his head?
Yeah, and actually, Coach McDowell's a really good person. Really enjoyed having a chance to talk with him over the weekend. And I thought he had a really nice gesture at the end of the game. You know, as coaches, we keep track of our hitters and what they do. And he gave me his chart as far as keeping track of the strikeouts to give to Charles, just kind of as another memento. So I thought that was a nice little nod from a guy that's had a pretty good career.
Jack McDowell is the new skipper of the new program, Queens University, where Charles Hall picked up the 22 strikeouts as the Pioneers get that 3-game sweep that really kind of set them over the top. Some much needed offense, I think, for the Pioneers has come in the name. Well, for Charles Hall, number one, National Player of the Week, National Pitcher of the Week, Regional Pitcher of the Week, and Conference Pitcher of the Week. Obviously well deserved, but I think for us to be successful, we've got to get the bats going. And Dalton Martin has tried. Here's a guy that comes in and is the guy that's kind of the expected leader of this team out there. And I got to your point, there's been some changes, obviously, but I don't think there's been a whole lot of change in him. I think he's kind of picked up where he's left off. Took him just a couple of weeks maybe to get going, but he's definitely going. Is the rest of the team following his lead?
Yeah, and again, I think that was something that leaving the fall, guys didn't have as productive offensive falls as they had hoped or we had hoped. And I think coming in the spring early, there was a little sense of, are we going to be able to score enough runs? Is anybody going to be able to protect Martin? Is he going to get pitches to hit? And we've seen that with some of the changes we've made with a couple of different lineups over the course of the spring, that we have some guys that can be very productive for us in maybe not in traditional sense. Trey Hinton, for example, has been a huge part of our offense, and a lot of that is his ability to get on base and move it to the next guy and push guys across second and third base for making an easier opportunity for us to score. And I think that's given a little breath to the other guys and not have to push and maybe stress as much as the plate, feeling they carry the weight on their shoulders for us to win or lose. And, you know, there's still some things offensively we have to work through and get some more consistency to make sure that day in and day out we can be productive. But for the most part, I'm happy with the growth and maturity of our offense from the first game, second game, the skid we were on, into where we are now.
It's a Pioneer team that batting average isn't necessarily up there probably where they would like for it to be, although he wouldn't know it. The pitching numbers are probably close to where they need to be successful in the South Atlantic Conference, but also need to be improved there. Just over 4 with the ERA, just under 300 with the team batting average. Going into the final stretch, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but some teams that you've already played, like Carson Newman, you know, that's always the one we kind of look at and see. You go down there to Jefferson City at the Silver Diamond, you get 2 out of 3, and probably feel as if you should have gotten 3 out of the 3 against the Eagles.
Well, I think if you had asked myself or Coach Griffin, you know, when we won Friday night, I think of the 3 games of the series, that's probably our best chance based on Charles's you know, previous experience and what he's done on the mound. And I think we left a lot of guys on base, and sometimes when you have a guy that's that dominant, the offense can get a little comfortable and maybe take a few pitches off and not lock in, and I think that cost us. And for us to come back after losing the first game on the road and to win the next 2, I think is remarkable for our program, for our guys. I'm extremely proud of them to be able to focus and come back and be able to do that, because Carson Newman's a quality ball club. They're very well coached, and obviously the rivalry is there. And for us to be able to do that, having not played there in a long time and obviously having struggles against them the previous few years, was something I think that we can kind of put our hat on, saying, okay, maybe this is a turning point for us to have the confidence to know we can go toe-to-toe with anybody.
That's exactly, I think that's my point. But the point is you get a big rivalry and a big rival team, and you do well and you have that success. Is there such a thing as one series to the next, some momentum? I used to always ask Coach Jones that. Do you believe in that momentum? He goes, I believe in it because of my next starting pitcher and those types of things. But do you believe from series to series you can gain that momentum based on the opponent you play?
I believe momentum is the product of execution the previous week. And week to week offensively, we're showing signs of improving in different areas. And if we can continue to have that production and that improvement from the top to the bottom, and also taking care of the baseball on defense, I think is going to be another key for us, because we had a couple of costly errors that hurt us on Friday. And if we don't make those mistakes, if we don't give away a couple pitches and an at-bat over the course of the day, is the outcome different? So I believe that the focus and execution that we had on Saturday was great. There's always room for it to improve, but moving forward, I think that momentum is a product of confidence and also previous week's execution and where we are as a team today.
Pioneers get ready to take on midweek games, Coker. They've also got LMU looming. We'll talk about the rest of this upcoming season for the Pioneers when we return with more Pioneer Baseball with Coach Brandon Steele after this.
Ready, set, go to Johnson City Toyota, where new Tacomas start at $309 a month with 0 down. Drive the all-new RAV4 for $209 a month or save over $4,000 on Highlander. See more great deals at johnsoncitytoyota.com.
Welcome back into Pioneer Baseball with Coach Brandon Steele. I'm Brian Staten. So the Pioneers with midweek games, sitting on 21 wins right now, 9 of those in the South Atlantic Conference. And then you got Coker coming in this weekend. Mm-hmm. What are the Cobras? What do they present? They're coming a long way. Obviously, play here at Pioneer Park. We love that. What do they present? What type of challenge will they have?
Well, obviously they're a very scrappy team, and obviously they have some confidence coming off last year's series. Mm-hmm. We went down there to end the regular season and came out of there with our tail between our legs because, again, we put ourselves in a situation to fail. And I think there's a little bit of a taste in the guy's mouth that they want to prove that last year was a mistake and that we can overcome that. And this weekend coming in, we're going to see it looks like a couple of right-handers and a left-hander. And it's going to be same plan as always. We're going to take care of the baseball. We're going to focus pitch to pitch, and we're going to just grind and compete. And that's something that we've just been stressing the whole time, is just staying in the moment, whether it's a bad pitch, a bad call, something that didn't go our way, is just focusing on the next pitch and competing. And they're very similar to us in terms of the way they play. They don't have a big 3 bats in the middle of the lineup. I know, like this past weekend, we got out homered by Carson Newman. Yep. But we're finding ways to be productive offensively, and they're very, very similar. They'll bunt, they'll steal, they'll hit and run, do all the different things to try and put the ball in play, move guys around. And so it's going to be a matter of us having to fight for the course of 3 games.
It hadn't been that long since Placido Torres was here, but you could basically say Friday night's a win. Mm-hmm. And I think Charles Hall, does he have that mentality? Does he have to feel as if he's the series setter for this team? I think truly that, again, when we talk about momentum of the season, I think momentum of the series starts on Friday as well, as far as how you pitch and how you play. Not necessarily win or lose, but if you play clean baseball and your guy on Friday is giving you a chance to win, you feel pretty good about the series. If your guy on Friday struggles a little bit, then I think sometimes mentally guys can start to lose focus. Yeah. And we've certainly had a chance to win every game that Charles pitched this year. Early, a couple no decisions because later in the game we weren't able to do what we needed to do. And then obviously this past Friday, we weren't able to put guys across the plate. We had our chances leaving 12 guys on. So with Charles going Friday, I'm sure everybody in the clubhouse is feeling pretty confident about our opportunity and our chances to be successful. But in this game, you still have to execute. On paper, things can look one way, but in reality, they can look another. Mm-hmm. So that's where we have to not necessarily focus on Coker so much. We have to focus on can Tusculum pitch, play defense, and get timely hitting. It's Coker this weekend, but they do just down the road, looming, is that showdown with an LMU team. It's been nationally ranked this year. Great pitching. Coach Six-Eyed did a great job. And they also hit the ball. They score a ton of runs. Then you got another team like an LR that has a great pitcher and can also score a ton of runs. Anderson, kind of you scratch your head just a little bit. What will they present? Mm-hmm. Guys, for us, as I look at the lineup, obviously I see Dalton Martin and I can see his numbers and doing things. Been impressed with what Trey Hinton has done. Been impressed with what Ford has done. McDade, his numbers are way down, but then his production numbers are way up, right. Which is kind of an odd thing, I believe. Nate Montgomery's somewhat that same way as well. Is there a guy in this lineup that has to surge as well? You've been getting that help from Hinton. You've been getting that help from Ford, but is there a guy that has to surge and be that consistent force for you like Martin has been through the season? Well,
I think the bottom third of our order, depending on, kind of what guys are in what spots, is kind of struggled at times for us this year. We'll get guys on and we'll kind of leave them out there. And it's not a lack of ability. You know, we've got really experienced guys at Baltimore with Fincham, McDade, and DeHaven. It's just being able to stay in the moment and relax and execute. Jarrell is a fantastic human being and teammate and competitor, and he wants to win so bad that sometimes his effort can go above and beyond what's required at that moment and take him away from being successful. There's been a lot of balls that he's hit this year, you know, just missing the barrel off the end cap or the handle because he's maybe trying too hard. And I think this past weekend he had a couple huge hits for us, had a great week. I really hope that maybe that gives him a little breath to relax and realize that where you hit in the lineup really is irrelevant once the first pitch is thrown. Right. If there's guys on base, we have to grind and find a way to get them across the plate. And the bottom of the order did that. And even Zach Fincham had a huge double for us this weekend to give us a chance to be successful. And Seth's been a huge guy that's been able to turn the lineup back over, particularly with Martin now back in the one, to try and get him some more bats, to try and give him a chance to drive guys in.
McDade is one of the guys that's in the South Atlantic Conference, one of the leaders in runs batted in. He and Martin, too, in the top 5 for this Pioneer team. All right, so going forward, obviously you don't scoreboard watch, you don't do those types of things, but I think it's important that, you know, we set a tone. We set this that first game series. There are teams, Newberry and Catawba, number 1 and number 2 in the league. Catawba's already played, 18 games, I believe, 15 games in the league. So they're ahead of the other teams that are there. You don't scoreboard watch, but how do you make sure that you are at least within shouting distance of that top 3 to compete for this conference championship? Because that's what everybody wants to do. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, we want to compete for a championship and win one, and I feel like our kids deserve that experience. But the way you do that is you take care of today. You don't look too far ahead as far as if we win today and lose tomorrow, what does that do to our standing? Our entire focus is in today and what we can do today. Because I think too often we can start looking ahead at different series, different matchups, our opponents and their schedules, and start dreaming on how that may work out. And then sometimes you can kind of get away from that. So we don't want to induce stress on ourselves by all the what-ifs. So we're going to focus on just today.
Today, the Pioneers move on. They'll take on Lee University. You can follow that through the Pioneer Sports Network as far as the Tusculum online, TusculumPioneers.com. You can follow that through the league. And then when the Pioneers are at home this weekend against Coker, follow that through the Pioneer Sports Network as they take on the Coker Cobras. He's Coach Brandon Steele. Thanks to Nick Forsberg and all those behind the scenes. I'm Brian Staten, and until next time, go Pioneers.